Yeah, you're listening to Kerry Today. This is Jerry O'Sullivan with you until 11 o'clock. And as part of our continuing coverage of General Election 2024, I've got two more candidates in Kerry who are looking for your number one vote on Friday to talk to about the policies, about the issues that matter to you. Keep your comments, views and opinions coming into us, of course, with your election priorities as well right throughout this programme. We've got Katrina O'Sullivan, who's running for Aon2, and we also have John O'Leary, who's running as an independent candidate. Good morning to both of you, and thanks for joining me here in studio.
Morning, Jerry.
Now, if I can ask you, first of all, Katrina, we're going to start on the issue of housing. It's the number one issue that's coming up on the doors from canvassers and from polls and other things like that. Aon2, what are Aon2's policies with housing? How will you fix the crisis here in Kerry and nationally if you're part of a future government?
Thanks, Jerry. Thanks for having me on, and good morning to the listeners. Right now, at the moment, our homeless figures are reaching 4,486 total in Ireland. That's approximately the population of Killarney. There's 4,561 children who are also homeless. That is equating to 180 classrooms of children. We are in a huge housing crisis at the moment, and past governments have not solved this issue. In actual fact, I believe that they are getting worse. In Kerry at the moment, and I did highlight this during the local elections, there's 149 as of September 23 local authority houses that are vacant, that are just sitting there idle. Those houses that I saw during the locals, they're still there as I'm canvassing today. We need to turn those houses around first and foremost. It's taking the council approximately 8 months to turn those around. We're looking at to do it within 2 months. Okay. Second of all, it's the vacant homes that we have now. There is a grant there for the refurbishment of these homes. Only 4.3 million has actually been utilised since July 2022. Okay, and from Aon2's research, it has shown that only 5 applications are being processed per week. So basically, it's going to take us 1,600 years to be able to actually go through all those applications.
Will you speed all that up? You're promising to get through that kind of bureaucracy.
So what
or
Aon2
lack
want
of speed.
to do, yes, what Aon2 want to do is they want to put 8,000 vacant home grants up to 70,000 each. Okay, that will cost around 560 million a year. We're going to reduce the red tape in relation to that because people are finding it very difficult to be able to get these grants. Also, we want similar grants of up to 30,000, and these are for above businesses.
Above the shop living.
Yes. So, it's going to open up space as well for people to be able to move in, and that will cost around 60 million. So,
can I ask you also, just on your other policies announced today as part of your housing manifesto, your housing commitments, that you're going to offer special payments for people to come home from abroad, Irish people, Operation Shamrock, €5,000
if
for
you're there
people
for less than 3 years. So that basically
and a tax credit then of 10,000 over the years if you stay.
Yes. So that's basically looking at bringing people home, bringing our nurses, our doctors, our construction workers home, and it'll go towards the cost of obviously the plane ticket home. It's a very expensive plane ticket. My own daughter, please God, will be coming home soon, and also just getting people set up. Well, trying to get people set up. We need to be building up our hospitals and our construction areas as well as all different areas within the sector. What we aim to do in relation to affordable and social housing is we're aiming to build 15,000 houses per year. I mean, if you look at the 30s, the 50s and the 80s, like we were in a lot worse of a financial situation, and we had a lot more houses being built back then than there is now. Like, renovating the existing stock of the social houses. I know a lot of the people, the candidates that are out canvassing at the moment, I'm sure they've seen the houses, social houses, that they're just in dire strait, and we need to look at renovating those.
Okay, John O'Leary, good morning to you.
Good morning.
What would you do if you were elected as an independent TD to fix the housing crisis?
First of all, I don't see myself as an independent TD. I don't like the term. I'm going to use the term a dependent TD. I'm dependent on the electorate for their support. I'm disappointed in all candidates in lots of aspects. I could go into it and say one of the main things with me is this Paris pump politics. But going back to your question on the housing, I have a lot of personal experience. I'm a structural engineer, I'm a mechanical engineer. I have a number of sons who are involved in engineering, both civil and mechanical. But I built my own house with my own hands. It's for sale at the moment. It's reached the market price. I'm trying to buy it, so I have to compete against the market. It went up 100,000 in the past year, so my half has gone up 50,000. I'm living in a camping car, so it's cost me 1,000 a week to live in a camping car. So I know all about the problems. But what I'm listening to here is that, you know, I no disrespect to you, but I found it hard to take in the information you were giving me there, because it was all figure statistics, right? I actually have a solution to the housing problem, but it's a bit controversial, right? And I would be, if I got elected, I would be calling on the students of Ireland to help me out. But, like, my house is for sale, it's 5 or 6 bedrooms. I would like to see a family go in there. In fact, if I can buy it back myself, I'm going to offer the rooms at €5 per night. You might say, it's crazy, man, offering a room at €5 per night. Now, next Friday is Cyber Friday, and I want to make an offer of €5 per night, subject to being able to buy my house.
What do you mean by
back.
getting the students of Ireland involved to fix the housing crisis?
There's a lot of student accommodation vacant for a lot of the year, and students themselves are on courses that involve quite often only 2.5 days per week. So the whole thing could be I worked in a college for 43 years, and I have great respect for the trade students, because they come in what's called block release. They do a 12-week stint. I'm amazed how dedicated a lot of them are. They get paid while they're going to college. In fact, some of them get paid more than they do in their workplace, which is quite incredible. They get more money coming to college than they do actually when they're in the workplace. But they get in, they get out, they get their job done. They go back to the workplace. I would be calling on students to go and do a lot more work placement in jobs where they learn a lot more. I have 6 children myself. 2 of my daughters have immigrated because of the housing situation. They said it's the only way they can save, and in reality they're saving up for a market that's going faster away from them than they, as I say, it cost me 50,000 to live in a van for the year. So I know everything about this, the reality of housing rather than the statistics. And you know, you're right there about in the 50s we built a lot more houses, but we did a lot more labour then. And you know, if we talk about building these houses, where's the labour going to come from? So we're going to bring people in from abroad who, in some respects, a lot of them don't fit in very well here. They don't fit in culture into it. And I used to bike tours here in Killarney, and I still come cycling here in Killarney, and I'm amazed how the culture of Killarney has changed drastically. Like, and we have to talk about it. We have to talk about the culture change in Ireland. Yeah. And can we?
But how do you build houses without the labour? How do you solve that labour problem if you don't bring people in from abroad?
Even though I have a situation where I have children looking for houses, right? There are plenty of houses in Ireland, plenty of vacant properties. I lived in a village called Kerry Pike. It's ironic. It's association with Kerry, the name Kerry Pike. There is several houses empty at any given time, you know.
So we need to get those up and running again.
And by the way, if you go to places like Dublin and Cork, the amount of vacant property over shops is massive altogether. So we have.
Would you give grants for people to do that up?
Yes.
Similar to other parties.
If we were to work out how many beds in Ireland at the moment, leaving out hotel beds in Ireland, you'd probably find there's 3 beds for every person in Ireland.
Okay.
You know?
All right, John, I want to talk now a bit about the cost of living, another issue that's coming up. What would AN2 do? What will you do, Katrina O'Sullivan, if you're elected to try and solve this problem? The prices people are having to pay for everything that have gone up over the last 2 years.
Well, I suppose if we look at fuel at the moment and data that's been released to AN2, and I know, John, you don't like figures, but I suppose people need to understand exactly what their money's been spent on and what money's been taken in relation to tax. The government has collected 3.8 billion in tax on fuel last year alone, and that's the highest amount that they've ever collected in 1 year over a decade. 107 million was derived from the carbon tax on natural gas. 2.4 billion came from mineral oil gas. 19 million from solid fuel carbon tax, and 4.2 from electricity gas. And that's an astronomical amount of money. And this government, it's at pains trying to convince the Irish person that they're doing everything they can to reduce the cost of fuel. But in reality, the government are profiting from the amount of tax that they're bringing in from fuel alone.
Okay,
and this is having a detrimental...
to reverse that, would you drop the excise?
So what we want
the carbon
to do,
tax and the excise?
So what we want to do is we want to reverse the last 2 excise increases on petrol and on diesel, and we want to pause all carbon tax increases until the cost of living crisis subsides.
Okay.
That's exactly what we want to do.
How would you replace that tax income? you'd have to raise it from elsewhere to pay for it.
Well, Jerry, all you have to do is look at the excess spending of this government. I mean, you look at the waste of money that's gone on to the Children's Hospital, you look at the bikes shed, you look at the security hub, you look at the phone pouches, the 9 million on phone pouches, which obviously the other 2 million that hasn't been disclosed to the public, that wasn't disclosed initially. All this money is being wasted. We have money. We're one of the most richest countries in the world. We have a lot of money left in the bank after the budget. You know, this money will go towards that. We're also looking at electricity. We're paying €500 more than any other EU citizen. I mean, that's an astronomical amount. And while we did get credits during the budget, there were definitely
the last couple of years, energy credits.
Yeah, well, there were definitely token. They're there definitely before to buy the electorate. You know, between the electricity, between the children's allowance and the other social welfare payments, they were there basically to buy the electorate, to buy votes, but. You know, families, they're not feeling a relief from this because, I mean, if you look at, for example, the child benefit, the double payments, when are they given? They're given just before Christmas. That money's been spent on Christmas and it's been spent on a certain individual. Okay, I won't say the person's name, but it's been spent on children. So it's not going in to somebody's bank for a rainy day. It's not. It's just been. It's a token. It's nothing. You know, nothing. Nobody's actually.
Would it be better if would then not pay it? Is that what you're saying?
No. I'm not saying not pay it. No, and what I'm saying is like the child benefit hasn't been increased in over 13 years, I think it is. So the child benefit definitely does need to be increased. And what Aintu are actually looking for in relation to the child benefit is for there to be a 2-tier system in relation to people who are on very, very low wages or on social welfare payments, that they would get additional child benefit. Everybody would get the 140 per child, but there would be additional payments to people who are in lower income, also for to start at 4 months of pregnancy, because obviously bringing a child into the world is a very expensive thing. Absolutely.
Okay, all right, I'm going to take a quick pause here. We're going to talk with John about cost of living in a moment. We're going to talk as well with Katrina O'Sullivan about other issues to do with this election. If you have any views, get in touch on what you're hearing and what the priorities for the election 2024 are for you. We'll have more after we take these.
Election 20.
You're welcome back to Kerry today. This is Jerry O'Sullivan with you until 11 o'clock, and we're in talking with two of our candidates for Kerry for election 2024. We've John O'Leary, an independent candidate, and we also have Katrina O'Sullivan, who's running for Aon2. John, just your response on cost of living. What would you do to help if you were elected as a TD for Kerry?
Well, first of all your questions could be spoken about for 2 or 3 hours, so to try and condense into a few minutes is very, very difficult. I wouldn't mind coming back here another stage and discussing more with you. But first of all, we live in a country, as Katrina said, is very well off. There are people, most of the people I know are well off. And the last campaign I went homeless in the streets of Cork for one night, and I found that very few people even stopped and turned their head towards me. And I was on an ambulance trolley, so I was kind of a bit unique. Like I had a drip hanging out of me as well. So, you know, I think people in Ireland generally are only concerned about their own issues. But what I will say about the cost of living is that let's look at some simple facts. The biggest landlord in the country is the state, because I'm not a private landlord, by the way, but I know private landlords, and they tell me this, that basically they're handing over half what they take from the tenant
in taxation.
To the state. Now, I say that to tenants, and what they say to me is, that's the way it is. I find that incredible, that the tenant is quite happy to accept that he can do nothing about the fact that the state is taking half his rent through the landlord. The landlord is effectively a tax collector. Very efficient tax collector. They don't even get a Christmas card for it. I'm not trying to defend landlords here, but this is reality, right?
Point. Yeah.
No, the state then decides, we'll give you back a little bit of it. It's great. Everything we get from the state is money we already gave to them. So all these Christmas gifts that Simon Harris is giving us now is actually our own money. But what I will say is that 20% of all taxation is waste. That means people are working 1 day a week to cover waste. I will be fighting my campaign on the basis that I want to stop the waste. I've set up a website called woow.ie. If you go into that, it'll link you to other sites connected with my campaign. But it basically is where the WOW one is basically where the public can look at waste in general. But I have a gov.ie one set up as well. So when I get into government, and I hope to get elected in 7 constituencies where I'll have a mandate from the people to become a minister or for waste, right? Government waste, where I'll hold them all to task, and we have a website set up already, and the government itself is supposed to be starting on the 20th of December. I will be ready to go next Monday. I have the website set up and I'm ready to go.
Okay, so just on the tax
thing,
it's not just the
like Kerry want to talk to. So it's just
sure, I understand. But would you reduce taxation on landlords? The 50% you talked about.
Well, do you know what now? You'd want to talk about this for 2 hours, and I'm always open. I'm always open to people coming up with better ideas. Can you give me an answer on that one? If what I would do personally, right, and subject to being corrected, right, leave the landlords collect the tax, leave and give it to the government. The government put it into a fund so people are over 5, 6, 10 years will have saved a lot of money to buy the houses. Okay, all right, very good. Can I ask you, just seeing as we're on that subject, John? It's like the SSA account of 10 years ago. Sure, just as we're on that subject, John, why are you running in 7 constituencies? Can I say something here now? Just say something, right? The government will obviously lose a lot of revenue because they'll have to give it back out, but they don't have to give it back out straight away, so they effectively can use it. The reason I'm running, I just mentioned a minute ago, the wastage in government is so excessive that someone needs to get in there on the cabinet table. And by the way, I'm 66 years of age. I've just retired from a full-time job. I am not interested in being a backbencher TD.
Yes.
I want to get a mandate. I want to win 7 constituencies.
Why?
You ask me a question.
Why?
To get a mandate from those 7 constituencies. I was going to run in 43, but I went to Dublin on Saturday the 8th or 9th, and I went to the returning officer in Dublin City, and I was told, it's not open till Thursday. So the last time around, I was able to go in 11, and I was hoping to go in 43 this time using my parents' inheritance. I have 5 grandchildren, and I was going to. Some people say I'm blowing the money. It's well worth it. I'm making an attempt to save Ireland from excessive taxation. I mean, everything you mentioned involves more taxation. We can actually reduce taxation and be more efficient. I mean,
I spoke about reducing taxation.
I'll let you back in, Katrina. She talked about reducing taxation in terms of tax, in fairness.
You've got to find ways of actually doing things without excessively taxing people as well, you know.
Okay, spot on. Katrina, can I talk to you? We're going to talk about the health service. You work in the health service, right? There are issues, there are problems. No, there's a lot of good things that happen in the health service. Yeah. In fairness, there's a lot of people who work very hard. There's good outcomes for people. There are bottlenecks and there are problems. Yeah. What would aim to do to solve those issues? And these have been intractable issues where these problems are over the last number of years, over the last number of decades, I should say.
Well, I suppose over the last 5 years, 3,000 people have lost their lives due to adverse incidents inside in hospitals, and nobody's been held account to it. When I'm on the doors, I'm listening to people saying that they would rather stay at home rather than go into hospital and get help. And to be honest, I don't blame them. Nurses are absolutely worn out. It's constant. Even on our days off, we're getting calls to come in on overtime when people are off sick. There's just, 2.5 billion, spent on compensation in relation to adverse incidents is just a shocking amount of money with nobody being held to account.
Where's that figure from 2.5 billion over how long?
2.5 billion over the past 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and that number was released by the department.
So how would you fix that? How do you fix that?
So we have we want to launch Operation Shamrock. So Operation Shamrock is basically, like you said earlier on, it's to attract people home, nurses, doctors, construction workers, but it's also in relation to the healthcare system. It's top heavy. Everybody knows it's top heavy. We have so many admin staff, we have so many management staff. What we want to do is we want to increase our frontline staff, and by doing that, first of all, we need to reduce the admin and management. So the latter basically will be done through natural retirement. So it's estimated that 600 people from admin and management they retire each year. So we'll then put an embargo on for 2 years. We want to employ and bring back, we want to employ 3,500 new nurses and midwives at the cost of 259 million to the government. 400 consultants as well is what we want to employ, and that will cost 88 million next year. So we need to also improve the workforce. We need to improve the terms and conditions, wages, and we have a new hospital here in Killarney, and while it's wonderful to see all these beautiful new buildings going up, if we don't have the staff for them, what is the point for them? You know, they look lovely on the outside, on the inside they're collapsing.
Just on that, your party have advocated as well, it's to do with your immigration policy, but it's tied into labour. You're going to reduce the number of work permits that are handed out. How does that work in a situation where you've 1 in 5 people in the workforce on a work permit, huge numbers of people in construction and in healthcare are from abroad on work permits? You want to reduce the number?
Well, I suppose if you look at the moment, so we are trying to improve the workforce planning, and over half of our undergraduate medical students are from outside of the EU, and they're going back to their home countries once their years are done inside in college. And then what we want to do is we want to increase the number of college places for Irish students so that they will stay within their own country and work for us. There are people...
Would you put a restriction on Irish students who graduate saying they have to stay and work when they finish?
No, well, we haven't discussed that. No.
Okay.
No. But I think, and I've spoken to a lot of doctors, and they've all said the same thing. If you can provide a good health service, good working conditions, people will not want to go. The doctors and the nurses are leaving because it's dangerous to work in an Irish hospital at the moment.
Yeah, just on that though, the work permits, does it make sense to curtail work permits at a time when we need it for several different industries, including hospitality, which is important here in Kerry?
Well, you see, the problem is that we having people coming in on work permits and they're not working, and I have dealt with a few of them myself personally, and they're turning up to the IPAS centres and they're reliant then, and they're unable to get social welfare payments, they're unable to get any sort of benefits
how
from
many?
the government. I'm not too sure of the whole overall figure.
So you're saying though you want to curtail work permits to try and stop that element?
Well, we want to, yes, because of the fact that they're not actually working.
Okay.
People who are coming in on work permits
you don't think
that
that reducing work permits would cause a problem for construction and hospitality and the health service?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No, I don't.
All right. John, what's your response in relation to that element of the health? What would you do to fix the health service?
I have
work permits, hospitals.
6 children. I have a lot of experience. 2 of my kids worked in the health service in Ireland, right?
Sure.
They're both abroad. My daughter moved to Australia recently. She got sick of working in the health service here, right? We're at a loss here, the amount of people we need to bring in just to service our health service.
How would you do it? This is about the next 5 years.
First of all, we know what's wrong. We got to admit that the people that are running this system are failing, right? And people are going to quite possibly maybe elect back in the same people again, so you're going to get the same.
Maybe not. Look, anything can happen. There's 19%. There's 19% undecided as we sit here this morning. What would you do, John, to fix it? You're saying the people who are in there
if I said to my daughter, come home tomorrow with Operation Shamrock, she'd say, forget about it, right? Did you see a lot of changes in Ireland?
So what would you do?
What I would do with the health service, the health service is a complicated one. Like, I mean, you should really be talking to people within the health service about the fun thing about I worked in education all my life, right?
Yeah.
And I'm an expert in education, right? And it's just one thing there that we need to put students on block release. All students on block release. They go out to the industry. They come in for a couple of weeks. They do a lot of stuff they do in college isn't relevant to the job.
Well, that's what happens in the health service.
I have a daughter that worked for Bank of Ireland in IT, and she's after moving to Dubai.
Yeah.
And the job she's in there is in HR, and she's never had any experience in HR, but she's the confidence because she came second in Miss Ireland in 2017. They gave her the confidence to take on any job.
Yeah, but we're talking about the health service.
How do you fix the health service?
Going back to the health service, right? The first thing I would do is anyone that's been trained in Ireland, right? And I had a son that did dentistry here in Ireland, for example. They should be charged, and if they work so many years here, they'll get it back.
Okay.
Right? You know, they get a loan basically from the state. So because if you like, imagine if we built London taxis here in Ireland, right, and we gave them to London for free. You sound crazy.
That's what we're doing. You're saying.
Well, what we're doing here is we're educating people.
So
for
would
free.
you require people to stay for a certain amount of time if they're educated?
You give them a loan for it. They can go if they want to. And some will go. Some rich kids will go. They go to America where they want to go to. But they'll have a loan hanging over them. And you might say, oh, that's a terrible thing. You're going to lose a load of votes for that now.
Okay.
Look, the reality is, if you build taxis here in Ireland, right, and send them over to London for free, you become considered a crazy person. If you educate people here for free and they go abroad, no. On the other side, people coming in that are educated they're doing the opposite from their country.
Yeah.
But I prefer to try and keep our own people here.
Okay.
Can I just come? Yes, have
Katrina,
one last thing,
can,
just in relation to the, well, obviously, I definitely don't agree with putting loans on students. But when I qualified back there in 2012, there was no jobs there for us, and we were brought in a year later as the yellow pack nurses, and we had to work for a reduced wage. So what we need to be doing is we need to be creating jobs, not putting loans on students, more stress on students.
I don't mean, but I'm going to retract that now, right?
Sure.
What you do basically is you say, look, if you leave the country, right, the loan is still there, right? I mean, let's face it, education is not free.
Yeah.
Education is not free.
Yeah.
I worked in education.
Yeah.
I'm now on a pension from education. That's been paid for by the state. So there's no such thing as free anything in this country.
That's right.
Where you can make it cheaper for students is shorten up the time. When I was a student 30 years ago, it was a 3-year diploma. Now, I know from working there that the content that we did was as much as a degree today. And
so
the guys in my class went into place the gap.
I want to get one or two things in before we finish.
We made education very expensive.
Okay, Katrina, 2 or 6% in the polls, and having a relatively good so far election campaign. Have you enough candidates in the field? Take advantage of that. We'll see. Who would you do business with? Fianna Fáil are the only ones? Like, if people are looking to vote for you as a possible government TD, are you going to talk to all parties or just, Fianna Fáil?
Well, we'll talk to Fianna Fáil. We most definitely will not be entering into any sort of coalition with Fine Gael. They have just absolutely ruined our country. We've seen over the weekend the distaste that Simon Harris has for the average person in relation to that per care that was not spoken to correctly or nicely. I don't care how tired he was. Listen, I have 6 kids too. I'm running a home, looking after my kids and on the election campaign, and I would never in a month of Sundays speak to or not listen to an individual who has real concerns.
Yeah. Okay.
Jerry, can I go back to...
Yes, very briefly, because we're short on time.
For a second, because any question you ask here could be talked about for 2 hours.
I understand that.
So I want to clarify something here, right? If I was to expand my answer there, I'm going to say to you, right? 30 years ago, nurses did most of the training in a hospital, right? I can't see why that can't be done today, and they could do a lot of their stuff online. So the cost of education could be brought way down. So that if someone did, like, by actually putting a bit of a price on it, people will actually shop around more. When a thing is free, I'm going to say, when a thing is free, it becomes more expensive because everyone. I often say to students in the college, I say, "What does 4th year cost you?" And they go, "Nothing. I'm on a grant, whatever." I say it costs you a year's salary because you could be out in the workplace working for that year.
Yeah,
so
fair point.
we got to start treating everything as a business. Not everything isn't free. If there's people working, there's a cost.
There is. Okay, listen, we're out of time. I want to thank both of you for going through your issues for us today.
Say the WOW site again, WOW.ie.
Yes, WOOW.ie.
Okay.
And if anybody wants to have a look at our manifesto, it's ain2.ie. We have all of our information in relation to all aspects.
Stuff. Okay, Katrina O'Sullivan and John O'Leary, thanks so much for coming in, and good luck on the campaign, and good luck
thanks for having us.
Friday and Saturday and through the weekend. If you have any views on what they've had to say, get in touch.